Good afternoon. I want to welcome you to the House Appropriations Committee bill hearings today, March 16th, 2021. I am Maggie McIntosh, Delegate McIntosh, Chair of the Appropriations Committee, and we are joined here today by a quorum of the committee to hear a number of bills. I will tell you the order in which we're going to hear the bills, but then I have one piece of business to take care of before we start bill hearings. I'm going to hear the bills just so the public knows in this order: House Bill 1374, House Bill 1245, House Bill 1159, House Bill 1141, House Bill 1043, House Bill 108, and House Bill 1295. Before we begin voting, we need to begin a bill hearing. We need to do one vote. And this is, as you may have picked up on already, the fact that the Kerwin 2.0 bill, which was jointly heard on Monday, is going to be assigned to just the Appropriations Committee. So the Ways and Means is doing a vote this afternoon to our committee. We too have to vote on the re-referral. So I would like to vote, re-refer House Bill 1372, revisions solely to the Appropriations Committee jurisdiction. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Delegate Mangione wants Ways and Means to be a part of this, but you're in the minority, okay? Or do you have a question?
Now, I wanted to clarify, were we voting on the additional Kerwin right now, or I'm sorry?
No, we're not voting on the bill. We're voting to re-refer the bill just to us, to the sole Appropriations Committee jurisdiction. The Ways and Means Committee will not be a part of the voting moving forward. We will vote on this bill later on this week in terms of the policy and content, okay?
Great, thanks for clearing that up.
You're very welcome. All right, I see no opposition. I wanted also for the committee to know that we will be voting tomorrow on two of the bills that we held last week and a few secondary bills that we have that other committees have voted on. They're waiting on us. Subcommittees will be meeting tomorrow to vote on bills. And we expect to have voting sessions this Thursday and this Friday as well, so that we can get through all of the bills that we want to pass over to the other chamber before crossover. I also want to just take a minute. Last night when we passed the budget, and by the way, again, thank you very much, all of you, for your participation. It was a really very good process, even though it was virtual. And so many people have commented today on how well that worked. I thanked a lot of people, the budget folks, DLS, et cetera, but there's some people I didn't thank that I want to just take a moment today and say thank you, because they have been in charge of our Zoom meetings, all of them. And so this is a good time to say thank you. And that is Dana Phillips, Jeannie Ferretti, Cherie Warhan, who are absolutely positively have made all of our Zoom meetings very smooth. And then, of course, after we vote and after we get all the voting done, Helen gets all the packets together for all of us, and we appreciate her. Thank you very much. All right, we're now going to move to the bill hearings for today, and we will start with House Bill 1317, Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the annual prior auth bill.
All right. Are there any questions of the sponsor? Very good. Is there anyone who has signed up to testify for this bill? Let me look. No, Delegate Barnes, we have put our full faith and confidence in you, okay? That's it. Okay, that ends the bill hearing. We're now going to move to House Bill 1245. Is Delegate Washington here?
Madam, we don't see him in the waiting room as of yet. If you would like to move to Delegate Thames, she is here.
Oh, Delegate Thames, welcome to Appropriations.
Perfect timing. I just logged on.
Good, very good. So
Here we go.
you have House Bill 1159. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman McIntosh. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of towards my bill 1159, which will address general education courses taken at the community college level and the need for these credits to transfer seamlessly and without further review to an accredited four-year university in the state of Maryland. Now more than ever, people who desire to obtain higher learning will be challenged with the cost of such due to the lack of being able to afford the cost of obtaining a college degree. Many young people upon graduating from high school may decide to enroll in a community college to obtain an associate's degree first to minimize the cost of obtaining a bachelor's degree. These same students take those credits earned at the community college level and transfer them to the four-year university with the hopes of those credits transferring without any question or a need to repeat the course. That's not always true. This bill will require four-year universities to accept the general education credits from the accredited community college so that the student can apply those same credits at the university level to obtain their degree and move on to the world of work. Doing so will enable the individual to contribute to the world of work and become a productive citizen in their communities without a huge amount of college debt. I ask for the committee's favorable report on House Bill 1159. Thank you for your time.
Did you tell the committee members that you were a member of this committee for about 3 hot seconds?
I'm sorry, you referring to me, Chair
Yeah.
McIntosh?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
No, I said we should tell them that you were a member of this committee for a few seconds. Change their mind.
Indeed, I was.
Right?
And I'd done a lot of prepping and preparing and reading about appropriations, only to have the rug yanked out from under me.
Yeah. You know what? The same thing happened to me when I was in years ago as, someone who was non-elected, appointed. I was on ECM for 3 days, and Chairman Rollins, who chaired the appropriations at the committee at that time, wanted me on this committee, and so here we go.
Exactly, taking his stride and move on.
That's right.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the sponsor? Okay, seeing none, we do have Bachman here.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair McIntosh. I'm Joanne Baughman, Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the University System of Maryland. Madam Chair, Vice Chair Chang, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity for us to support HB 1159 with amendment. We agree that the general education course credits earned at community colleges toward an AA degree should in fact transfer to four-year institutions without further review or testing requirements. I have to clarify, however, that providing earned credit toward the 120 credits required for a bachelor's degree may not be exactly the same as credit earned directly toward the major. There are some specific situations out of our control in which a course taken at a community college may transfer as elective credits instead. In the written testimony, I've given you an example of such a course in which the accrediting agency requires that all courses be taken in an accredited program and only the four-year program is accredited. However, the amended language that we request, we think, is not a change in intent of the bill. Rather, we would wish for a clarification that the four-year institution shall develop incentives for students to obtain AA degrees if they indeed begin at a community college before enrolling in a public senior higher education institutions. I'd also like to take just one moment to note that we are working very hard to improve the articulation system, ArtSys platform, that according to statute is the responsibility of USM rather than a mutual responsibility of higher education in the state. I must tell you that we're challenged to manage that platform, especially in a time where our resources are so limited. It is an improvement that we are working on that manages articulation pathways, course transfer equivalency, and improves the portal for making it much more friendly for students, faculty, and staff. We are doing our best to provide an improved system in this difficult environment. The USM is committed to improving the transfer process. We will continue to work with our 2- and 4-year college colleagues towards the goal of smooth transfer for students. For HB 1159, we urge a favorable report with a simple amendment suggested. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, that concludes the bill hearing. And I want to say to the delegate from Hagerstown, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good
And
afternoon.
now we're going to move back to House Bill 1245. Delegate Washington is here. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee and Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for having me. For the record, Delegate Alonzo Washington here to speak on House Bill 1245, which permanently extends the $5 million appropriations for the Next Generation Scholars Program and expands the opportunity for more students to receive assistance in obtaining access to a higher education. To help expand this pipeline, this bill as amended, you'll see some proposed amendments in here. Proposes some simple fixes to the NGS program to maximize usage and identify students who can benefit from the Guarantee Access Grant. This bill sets a minimum qualification for participation in this program, eligibility for free reduced price meals, supplemental nutrition programs, SNAP, temporary assistance for needy families, and HUD assistance. The amendments also include language to ensure 7th and 8th graders are included in the pipeline. For those reasons, and for my personal story, I asked for a fair report on this bill. And Madam Chair, I want to just thank you for creating this program because it's helped tons and tons of students get into college. So thank you for that. And I'm here to expand your program even further. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sure you'll hear from the members, from the folks who will be able to speak on this bill. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Delegate Washington. And in addition to young men like you, who this program and programs like it have helped in the past, we elected a nice young mayor in Baltimore City who came down and testified as a council person on the original bill because he was helped to go and graduate at our own St. Mary's College in Southern Maryland because the kind of help he got moving through the process. So thank you very much. And I'm happy you and my mayor are very appreciative of this work. Are there any questions of the sponsor? I see none, so we will move to we have two people here today. Jimmy Tadlock, College Bound Foundation. And as a matter of fact, Jimmy, it's the College Bound Foundation that helped Mayor Scott graduate from high school and move into one of our own state schools. So are you here you're here to testify in favor? Am I correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am here in support of House Bill 1245. So Vice Chair Chang and other committee members, first of all, I'm allowed to say hats off to Madam Chair for helping to launch this initiative. and for those legislative leaders who've had the foresight to make sure this resource was brought to bear to help young people such as Meryl Scott from Baltimore, who actually began working with College Bound when he was a ninth grader at Mergenthaler for Tech High School in Baltimore City. Now, although the Next Generation Scholars Program in its initial launch only supports students in 8 counties, that being Allegheny, Baltimore City, Caroline, Dorchester, Kent, Prince George's, Somerset, and Wacomico counties, we see the need is much greater considering that we have guaranteed access grant recipients from all LEAs across the state of Maryland. We just think it's a great opportunity to help young students beginning as early as middle school to recognize their potential to not only become a college graduate, but to become productive citizens in the state of Maryland they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And those supports include things such as advocacy, year-round academic programs such as SAT prep programs, an opportunity to participate in internships, summer work programs, an opportunity to go on unique college tours, and also unique supports for the students and their parents. So again, we ask that you continue supporting this great program.
Thank you. We now move to Joseph Fisher, first generation college bound from Prince George's County. Is Joe here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, man. I had to
That's okay.
unmute myself. Madam
No
Chair,
worries.
Thank you very much. Here representing Prince George's County, first generation college bound, and also proud to be here. As I talk to you today, I can't help but think about Delegate Washington, as we started with him in 9th grade to go through, and as we're in favor here to support this this bill. And also, I just want to say that I just want you to know I'm very passionate about this bill. Just as this bill represents Alonzo, who's from the housing projects where this program is needed for this pipeline to higher education. It also represents not just his mom, but also my mom. Both of us neither graduated high school, and they really need this help. My mother worked in the tobacco fields, as a matter of fact, down in Charles County. As you can see, that wasn't long ago. So this initiative is so needed. And Alonzo has more to even share about his mom's story. We have more in common than you know, but because of our education, we have more in common today because of our achievements. And we're able to go back to help. So we're asking that you support this initiative. And I just want to tell everyone, we can't tell you enough how important this bill is during this COVID. As we've been able to be in contact with our kids, we've been able to be in, I tell you, we've been on the ground floor using Zoom to stay in touch with our 9th and our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And we're excited about our first class that's going to graduate this year. Most of our kids this year, is no question about it, through this pipeline, they will graduate and go to Maryland State colleges and universities. But I am pleased and I'm proud to share with you today, oh my goodness, one of our students just got accepted to Columbia University and will receive room, board, and tuition. Thanks to you, you have made this happen, and she's been in the program since 9th grade. What something the state can be proud of. So we're asking you to support this updated legislation so that each program can practice its strength to truly do what it does well to help these kids achieve higher education.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Delegate Geraldine Valentina Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the sponsor for bringing it to the committee. I think I would love to double or triple the amount. I just wanted to ask a question. I've looked through the fiscal note. Are students eligible if they are matriculating from a public and private high school, or is it just public high school?
It's both, isn't it?
It reads as both, but I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not sure. So they can be, as long as they meet the requirement of free and reduced lunch, they can be coming from the public or private setting for the.
We also included amendments in there, Delegate, that expands it from just free and reduced price meals and also being eligible for FAFSA grant. Yep.
No, terrific. Thank you.
Mhm.
If we can get more like Delegate Alonzo Washington, maybe we'll have to add even more money to it.
I moved that
Delegate-
amendment, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we can't have too many of you. Delegate
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just really wanted to thank Delegate Washington and the folks from College Bound and Mr. Fisher, who have been really key partners in working on a lot of the financial aid work we're doing with MHEC in our subcommittee and with FAFSA as a whole. So just wanted to, isn't that so? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate.
Okay, thank you very much. This concludes the bill hearing. Good to see all of you, Mr. Fisher, especially you. It's good to see you again.
All right, take care. Thank you, everybody.
Move to
Thanks, Jimmy.
House Bill 1141. Delegate Boatler.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Joe Boatler, and I'm here on behalf of House Bill 1141, Baltimore County Public Schools Air Quality Testing. The purpose of this bill is to require Baltimore County Board of Education to use an indoor air quality inspector to conduct air quality tests of Baltimore County Public Schools and to require the results to be made public on the BCPS website. It does not mandate when or how often that they must test the air quality, but how the results are handled. This bill came about because in 2018, teachers at Parkville Middle School complained about mold in the classroom. And it took almost 7 months after the complaints were filed that the school finally, the air quality was assessed, only to find no evidence of mold. Despite claims that Baltimore County Public Schools immediately resolved the issue, complaints about mold and document instances persist. And it was interesting because when there was a report that was done and when the report was finally able to be reviewed, while they said there was no evidence of mold, they went on to say that there was mold behind certain walls and there was mold in classroom, I think it was 215. I believe the air quality testing results need to be public because teachers and parents deserve to know the conditions of these schools. The results will give concerned parents the tools to hold the school board accountable if poor conditions are ignored. This simple requirement will pave the way for ensuring that our schools are a safe environment, and for that reason, I urge you to support this bill. I also would like to mention that there may be an amendment, which was an oversight in working out the details of this bill, and all the amendment would do would create a website so that people had a mechanism to report a problem in their school. And I will be able to let you know this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning as to whether or not that amendment will move forward. The Baltimore County delegation voted on it and they voted favorable on this bill.
Okay, good. All right, do we have any questions of the sponsor? I see none. Maureen Hall is an individual who has signed up. Yes, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
There you go. Thank you very much, Maureen.
Yes, I have a few things why I think this should be House Bill 1141 should be passed for two reasons. One is I have suffered the last 2 years with health issues, as among other teachers in the building. The building was built in 1954, so this is a building that is full of asbestos. Many teachers have been sick and have had upper respiratory infections since this mold has happened. Mold has been found in numerous crawl spaces, in desks, flags, boards, basketballs, walls, teachers' desk, and exhaust fans. In addition to this, there was this constant smell in the building as you entered in the morning and downstairs in the utility room or in the activity room. The second reason this should be passed is that we're still in a pandemic. And to my knowledge, the building does not have any filtration system, which makes it a big concern for people like myself who have underlying health conditions. And some of the kids that I work with in special education have health issues as well. like I had said before, half the schools built between 1950 and 1969 are buildings that were built with this material. They used them because it was durable and it was fire resistant. And this is very worrisome, especially in 2016 when the air conditioning unit fell through the gym floor. So I hope this does pass because this concerns me. It concerns me a lot about the kids being in the building right now and being exposed to all this. When they actually did some testing 7 months later, they did not do a mold test. And I kept questioning that and still questioning that today when there's mold still growing in the building. And this was a big concern when we went to, I think it was Sam Mustaford, about having them come in and do a testing. And then when we rose this question about doing testing, he goes, well, we don't want to displace 1,200 students. My question is still this: why are they not doing an actual mold test in the air ducts? That just blows me away that hasn't been conducted yet. So I hope this passes, that we can do some testing and the kids can breathe and teachers can breathe good air. So this is why I would like to have it passed.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being here in front of the Appropriations Committee. Are there any questions? Maureen? I see none. Thank you very much, Delegate Boatler and Maureen, for being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to move to House.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. House Bill 1043.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Appropriations Committee. Bill 1043 would mandate funding for local health services, funding and infrastructure. And I would say, as was the case once before, great minds, past and present, the chairs of the Health Subcommittee of Appropriations think alike. I would defer to Delegate Resnick's bill, which I understand is more precise than this bill. My bill is prompted by conversations and discussions I had with Josh Sharfstein, former Secretary of Health for the state, now at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. And this committee knows better than any other committee the impact of COVID-19 on our infrastructure, on our public health infrastructure specifically. And I would just point out to the committee that the American Rescue Plan does provide that the Secretary of Health and Human Services may award grants to state and local public health departments, quote, related to establishing, expanding, and sustaining a public health workforce, so that there hopefully is the opportunity here and in many other instances to use the money we will be receiving from the federal government as part of the ARP to meet these unmet state needs. Would urge your favorable consideration of the delegate's bill and whatever wisdom and input you can gain from what I've proposed here. I would appreciate it. But the important thing is to move forward on the issue so that the next time, and we have to prepare for the next time, and for other circumstances, our public health infrastructure will be better prepared than it is now. So would urge favorable consideration of legislation on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Rosenberg. Are there any questions from the committee to the bill's sponsor regarding House Bill 1043?
Mr. Chairman, I gotta get
Delegate Weitzel.
I'm trying to get my hand up, so just hang on. I guess I don't need to raise it now, but I do have a question. Delegate Rosenberg, so you're saying that Delegate Resnick has a similar bill and that you would be satisfied if you roll your request into his bill? Is that what you're saying?
His bill, yes, I'd be very satisfied if his bill moves forward. And if there's anything that can be added, to it from my bill, fine.
Okay, all right. I just want to be clear on that.
I would say specifically the reference to the federal money, most likely.
Yeah. So rather than withdrawing your bill to allow his to proceed, you're just want to work together with that bill, with the committee, make sure your topic is addressed.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, we'll move on to testimony from witnesses. First, we have favorable with amendment testimony from Michael Sanderson, Maryland Association of Counties. Sanderson, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. We submitted a written statement, and I think it very much conforms to the sponsor's testimony. We appreciate the interest in this issue from the sponsor of this bill, from the sponsor of the earlier bill, and the sponsor of the Senate bill that's in your committee's possession with a unanimous vote from the floor of the Maryland Senate. A couple of weeks ago, I hope your committee will remember you had a wave of people before you talking about the importance of local health and what Delegate Resnick's bill was proposed to do. I've tried to be respectful of the committee's time. We've called off the dogs for a round 2, but the message that they left with you several days ago would be very much the same as we want to deliver on this bill. And that is local health departments are doing essential work and they deserve your overdue support. I absolutely agree with Delegate Rosenberg that a reference to and an accommodation for federal funds in whatever you might want to do could be a very sensible way to get from here to some period of time. But I would hope to caution you against, let's not rely exclusively on federal funds because that may be just a year or 2 window. And we do need some predictability in the ability of our local health departments to plan and execute and hire on beyond just a year or 2. So with that, our amendments, our proposed amendments were basically the same gist as what you just heard from the sponsor. We really don't care about the sponsor line. We all want to deliver for local health on the front lines, both during a pandemic and beyond. You got multiple options of bills to choose from. We encourage your support on any or all of them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanderson, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Mr. Sanderson? Seeing none, we have unfavorable oral testimony listed for Vince McAvoy. Mr. Vince McAvoy, if you're here. Also in the bill file, we have testimony from Aaron Dorian with the Maryland Hospital Association and Maryland Department of Health Office of Government Bernardi, and also Barbara Wilkins with the Department of Budget and Management. That ends the bill hearing for House Bill 1043. The committee will now move to House Bill 1208. Delegate Solomon, Task Force to Study Academic Credit for Prior Learning in Higher Education. Delegate Solomon, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon here on HB 1208, and as the chair said, the title sort of gives the bill away. What it would do is create a task force to study creating essentially uniform standards for Maryland colleges to award credit for prior learning assessments, things like AP, which many of you may be familiar with, or International Baccalaureate, or college level examination program, or CLEP as they're usually referred to, or even the Cambridge International. And I think, this is an issue, frankly, that's even more needed now, especially since we've passed the blueprint, which is going to be, really prioritizing early college programs for our students, getting them into AP programs, getting them to take IB. And so this is sort of continuing along the lines of what many of us have talked about this year, is trying to think about how we can, in very low cost ways, make our policy better to streamline the college process for our students, make sure that they are, efficiently getting all the credits that they need, not having to duplicate efforts. There are 31 states and large university systems across the country that already have uniform policies in place. And there's 19 that have established policies for CLEP. And you're going to hear from a couple of AP teachers from across the state. But in particular, on the AP exam, so as many of you know, the AP is scored usually on a 1 to 5. The American Council for Education, offers usually anything that's a 3 or above should probably more than likely be given college credit. And what we see in Maryland, unfortunately, is that even though we are 5th in the nation in AP classes, and almost 31% of our graduating seniors actually get a 3 or above on exams, that it's really, in some instances, hit or miss, as to whether or not they're going to get credit. And to be honest with you, there sometimes seems like there's no rhyme or reason. Statistics, for example, and we're not talking about within major, but if you look at, what colleges and universities and community colleges in the state of Maryland give credit for 3 on the statistics exam, there's some of them within USM, there's some within the community college that give it for a 3, there's some that give it for only a 4. And so what we hope to come out of this task force is essentially one uniform policy. And it's also, a big problem with transfer students, because you may get, let's say you start out at a community college that gives you credit for that 3, and then you transfer to a USM school that says, well, you had to have a 4. Well, suddenly you've now lost that credit. And so even though you may have gotten an associate's degree, you're right sort of back where you began, and you're going to have to retake that credit. The last thing that I will say is, there's really also a tremendous savings that could potentially be realized from this. So if you look at stats from the College Board, which administers the AP exam, and you look at potentially the amount of credit hours that could be saved by, again, making sure that students had a uniform policy, that really levels the playing field across the state, it could be potentially over $9 million when you just take the number of credit hours that equal essentially the credit that could be realized from these AP exams. It's the same thing when you look at the International Baccalaureate exam. The last piece that I will say is when you look at the testimony that's been submitted, there's actually no opposition. It's rare that we've been able to get K-12 and the Superintendent's Association to be on the same page with the university system, with the community colleges, and with MICUA. And so I'm hoping that that this task force will study the issues, will bring the smartest people in the state who are front and center with these policies, and be able to get a uniform system for our students. Again, that I think is even more of a need with what we hope will be a much sizable increase in the number of students taking college level courses when Kerwin is implemented. So with that, I would ask for a favorable report, and happy to take questions and turn it over to the witnesses that we have with us today.
Thank you very much, Delegate Solomon, for presenting House Bill 1208. If we may, committee, we'll hear testimony favorable from 4 witnesses, and testimonies will have questions to the witnesses. If you could keep your testimony within 2 minutes, be much appreciated. First, we have Murdo Valdez Bradner.
That would be me. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to everyone. It's rare to the teacher gets to see such distinguished group of people other than my students every day. Thanks for having me. I'm an AP teacher in Caroline County at North Carolina High School. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I teach Spanish language. And I've been doing it since 2006. I also grade the AP exam, and I'm AP reader for the last 10 years. It's really important that we think about this uniform policy, because a 3 in an AP exam, while it passes, the exam, is rare. The students get college credit. And I think about my minority students and my low-income students. I had quite a group of minority students who got a 3 in a lot of other exams. And then for them, they're not getting college credits. And, when we educate a group, a community, we're just move forward. And it's so costly for them when, in a way, we're telling them that they are passing the exam, but now they're not receiving college credit for it. In 2020, in Caroline County, 55 of our students received a 3 or higher in the AP exam. And we're pushing that forward to get more students to take those courses. So it's really important for us. And I think that having a uniform policy where there's all the colleges and the state of Maryland education is all involved will really help us to look at this and be able to be fair to our students that are taking those courses, which is the demanding courses in our schools. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valdez Bradner. Next, we have Suzanne McGurk with the College Board.
Chair McIntosh, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the committee, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Suzanne McGurk. I'm Senior Director of Higher Education Policy with the College Board, and we're very pleased to support Delegate Solomon's House Bill 1208. We really think that this offers an opportunity to ensure that students who score satisfactorily can receive credit at the post-secondary education institutions in Maryland. This allows high school students and transfer students the opportunity to plan and prepare which courses and exams they're going to take. Without a statewide credit policy in place, institutions could change their credit policies year in and year out, undoing all of the planning and hard work that students put into these courses and exams. So it's worth keeping these students engaged in the educational pipeline and making sure that they don't have reversals after they've made so much hard effort and planning. Research shows that students who are successful on CLEP or AP with the scores that are outlined in this bill have a strong expectation of being successful in the next course. All of our research is founded on how those students are going to perform when they arrive in the sequent course. We want to make sure that these scores on AP and CLEP mean that students will have an expectation of being successful and moving forward in their programs. The institutions also benefit because they're receiving students who are more likely to be engaged in the majors and minors in the areas where they had success. They're more likely to have students who will persist to graduation, and they're more likely to have students who will graduate on time. The CLEP program may not be as well known to you as the AP program. The CLEP program is one that's been around almost as long as the AP program, a little over 50 years, and it was created for adult students, particularly military service members who are returning to college before returning to the workforce. And so this exam is something that can benefit not only high school students, but your adult students and your completion strategies as well. The bill supports both the efforts for students, whether they're traditional high school students or non-traditional students. And we believe that support of this bill will remove some of the roadblocks that have been longstanding challenges to students receiving this credit. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGurk. Next, we'll hear from Amanda Lattimore with Baltimore County Public Schools.
Good morning. Thank you all for affording me this opportunity. I'm Amanda Lattimore. I am a computer science teacher in Baltimore County Public Schools. I'm also a computer science resource teacher for the Career and Technical Education program. I've taught here for 19 years. I've been teaching AP since 2009, and I took AP courses as a student when I attended school in Baltimore County. And I've also been grading the AP computer science exams for 8 years. So Baltimore County is constantly working on increasing diversity and equity in our AP courses. But there's obviously still some issues that need to be addressed in regards to AP credit policies. So I've seen students not take the AP exam because their choice Maryland colleges either do not accept the exam or only accept a 5, and students are afraid that they would not score at that level. These students wind up paying more to take the college course than if they had passed the exam in high school. In computer science, I've had students who passed the exam with a score of 3 or higher pay to retake the AP exam because University of Maryland only accepts a 5, but other Maryland schools accept a 3 or a 4. This is especially troubling for students who cannot afford to retake an exam. I am in full support of this bill. All it does is help the students that we know and love. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lattimore. Next, we'll hear from Keisha Thorpe with AP Capstone. Keisha Thorpe. At this time,
I think I was on mute. I apologize.
That's okay.
Chairman McIntosh, Vice Chairman Wang, and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Keisha Thorpe, and I have served as an AP English Literature and AP Capstone teacher for over 7 years now. So I currently am at the International High School Langley Park, which is in PG County, Prince George's County Public Schools. And I definitely support the HB 1208. This bill will include a number of programs, but I would like to speak more specifically on the CLEP assessment, which is very, very valuable for my students. And even though it's also valuable for adult learners. So as a teacher, I personally know the benefits of the CLEP assessment in helping to advance students towards their academic goals for college. The college level examination, our program, which is the CLEP, is very rigorous, and it's a credit-driven program which allows a wide range of students of all ages and all backgrounds, especially for my students who are immigrants, to be able to show mastery of introductory level material and earn college credit to go to college and prepare them for college. showing the mastery of the content that they have learned in high school. And today the CLEP is, like most of my counterparts have said, is accepted by over 3,000 colleges and universities in the US and over 34 subjects. And so Maryland definitely needs a clear and consistent CLEP credit and placement policy that will ensure that all of our students are qualified and that they consistently receive credit and or placement. Currently, Maryland higher education institutions are not awarding AP credits to students because of their inconsistent grading policy. And as a result of that, we know that a lot of students who earn scores could be losing these credits, and they have to pay to take similar college-based courses. My daughter is a high school student, and currently she is studying for some CLEP exams. And this will definitely increase her chance of her college choices. And I don't want this to be her reality because of the roadblock that she has up against her with the inconsistent policies. AP provides my daughter, along with all of the students that I teach AP, who are motivated and academically prepared with a rigorous curriculum that is approved and evaluated by colleges and university faculty. And the pandemic has clearly illuminated the need for different pathways for students to be prepared for college because of the many challenges and inequities that this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thorpe.
The students prepare for. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. This time, the committee will take questions for the bill sponsor and the witnesses. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. Also within the bill file, we have testimony from Stacy Bassett with the College Board, Dr. Bernard Sadusky with the Maryland Association of Community Colleges, Aaron McHale with PSSAM, Sarah Fiddler with the Maryland Independent Colleges and University Association, and also Joanne Baum with the University System of Maryland. That concludes the bill hearing for House Bill 1208. The committee will now hear House Bill 1295, Delegate Ivey, University System of Maryland, Student Fees, Review and Retention. Delegate Ivey, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the entire committee. I want to for all the important work that you're doing throughout this session, specifically on the budget right now. For the record, Delegate Jane Ivey here presenting House Bill 1295. As introduced, this legislation requires the institutions of the University System of Maryland to expend student fees in a manner that is consistent with the intent of the original request. These fees that our students pay to USM are approved, paid, and collected for specific operations and services that are supposed to be accessible and available to the students. I understand that USM's fiscal situation is complex and the pandemic has made budgeting even more precarious. However, I believe that this makes it even more important that revenues generated through student fees are spent appropriately. Now, as amended, the institutions within USM would still be able to use these revenues beyond their original intent. However, they would be required to be transparent and accountable for these expenditures to the students that they serve. The student leaders on the sponsor panel will provide some additional background and information as to why this bill is necessary to make sure that student fees are being spent in a transparent and accountable manner. Again, I want to thank you for your time. I'm asking for a favorable report on House Bill 1295. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Ivey. This afternoon, we have 4 witnesses who are joining us to provide favorable testimony. If all the witnesses could please limit their testimony 2 minutes each, and then we'll take questions from the committee. First, we have Benjamin Bateman with the University of Maryland Student Government Association.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Bateman. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the UMD Student Government. I want to say thank you to Chair McIntosh, Vice Chair Chang, all the members of the Appropriations Committee for your time, and thanks to Delegate Ivey for spearheading this effort to improve transparency in how USM schools spend student fee revenues. Throughout my testimony, please refer to my attached documents for greater details. The Board of Regents defines fees as mandatory and non-mandatory, both of which are charged for specific reasons with specific intentions for how they are spent by the departments that requested them. In response to a state funding cut in 2019, university administrators announced that 5% of all campus fund balances would be moved into a CFO-controlled discretionary account. This included over $3.5 million from accounts that are funded either in part or in full by student fees. In many cases, 80 to 100% of collected funds were revenues derived from student fees. Many departments had to postpone renovations and delay services. Some departments were in fact concerned that they would have to request an increase to their fee in order to make up lost revenues. Even department directors expressed concern that the reversion sets a precedent for the university to use student fees in offsetting losses from other sources. Another email from university administrators noted which projects were financed by the discretionary fund, including administrative research costs and capital expenditures. These are not projects that student fee revenue should be spent on. This inappropriate spending of fee revenues violates USM policy and prevents students from receiving the services that they pay for. This bill requires that student fees be spent in the way that they were intended to be spent when the fee was originally requested. In response to the institution's complicated fiscal situations, the bill allows institutions to spend student fee revenues beyond their intended purpose as long as a fee review committee reviews the exception, which should ease any concerns that administrators across the system have about controlling their institution's finances. Again, I encourage you to look at my written testimony for a more detailed breakdown. We've enjoyed working with College Park administrators on the friendly amendments that Delegate Ivey has proposed, which will ensure that the bill is not limited in scope to specific fees or types of fees. Because this went against the system's own policy with no accountability, it must be remedied through a change to the law. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to give a favorable report on HB 1295. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bateman. Next, we'll have testimony from Ireland Leslie.
Hello, my name is Ireland, and I'm the former student body president at the University of Maryland. Thank you all for being here for this hearing, which is on this legislation, which is the result of over 2 years of work by the UMD SGA. Throughout the student fee approval process, students are told our role, which is supposed to contribute to shared governance, is only advisory. We are told that our work to best represent the student body is only as valuable as administrators decide. However, what is most frustrating is the total lack of information, clarity, and transparency regarding exactly what the student fee committees are supposed to be advising and approving. When I found out about their reversion in the fall of 2019, it was not through notice by campus leadership before they took $61,000 from SGA and student organizations, or $3 million from student fees sustained departments. I found out in private meetings with department heads who shared how it was going to detrimentally impact their budgets and ultimately students by having to dramatically increase their fees to provide services. I spent months getting clarity on who had made this decision and why. I had countless meetings with administrators where they pointed fingers at each other, and in some meetings it emerged that perhaps they shouldn't have taken the money from student fees, but that it was too late now. In meetings with department heads, some who didn't even know the reversion had happened, or they shared how it would negatively impact their budgets. It was striking to discover that there had not been a comprehensive look or even any questions asked about whether this would ultimately negatively impact student services and raise student fees. It was even more striking that the decision maker, former Provost Rankin, refused to meet with me or other students on this issue or offer any further explanation about how she had come to this decision. Ultimately, this bill is about transparency, about giving the student fee review committees at each institution full information about where the fees go and how they are used. It's about creating a model of shared governance, real shared governance. Despite there being plenty of questions around the student fee process and their reversion, there is one thing we do know. This method of budgeting, through a lack of transparency, can only continue to hurt service students. That is why this bill is so important, and I urge you to give this bill a favorable report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Leslie. Next, we'll hear testimony from Max Hancock, Frostburg State University Student Government.
Hey, everyone. My name is Max Hancock, and I'm a senator in the student government at Frostburg State. I would first like to thank Chair McIntosh and the committee as a whole for the opportunity to discuss this bill. It is my utmost honor to testify here today as my constituents and I consider the passage of House Bill 1295 key for creating transparency and goodwill across the University System of Maryland's campuses. The process by which USM student fees are determined is one that should include students. Whether mandatory or program specific, University System of Maryland policy dictates that representative advisory boards be given the opportunity to review fee decisions. This policy theoretically establishes a universal mission of transparency, but that mission isn't actively pursued. While my colleagues at the UMD identified an instance of misspent departmental fees, I would like to focus my attention on a different provision of this bill. Frostburg State students face unique barriers to participating in the fees process. Learning who serves on the fee review board was challenging, even for myself, a senator in the student government. After a convoluted series of emails, which directed me to 3 different administrators, and a variety of student leaders, and a few meetings on the subject, I've come to the conclusion that our university's fee review board is actually entirely inaccessible. It lacks transparency and is not representative of student stakeholders, as is stipulated in the relevant USM policy. Meetings are not publicized. The school's website bears no mention of this board or its membership, and it is not visible to the average student. This is not the transparent process that Maryland students were promised. Frostburg saw a nearly 20% increase in fees from 2016 to 2019. The majority of students had no easy way of identifying the parties responsible for these increases, which is a travesty for a school and a system that prides itself on being accessible to all. FSU is a low-income community, and we really can't endure many more attacks to the well-being of our most vulnerable students. House Bill 1295 represents an opportunity to enforce the standards of respect and financial sustainability that recent years have seen neglected. Without this bill's protection, students have no reason to trust the process. Thus, it is with these intentions that the student body of Frostburg State requests a favorable report on House Bill 1295 for the good of both our education and our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Hancock. Next, we'll hear testimony from Emily Berry, Residence Hall Association, University of Maryland, College Park.
Thank you to Chair McIntosh, Vice Chair Chang, and the committee for considering this legislation. My name is Emily Berry, and I'm the president of the Residence Hall Association, which represents the voice of all on-campus students at the University of Maryland. I've become deeply involved with fees during my time at UMD and have held an RHA seat on several fee advisory committees. However, I did not become aware of the reversion until 4 months after it occurred. In the following months, in discussions with directors in and outside of the Committee for the Review of Student Fees, we heard many times that if this budget loss continues, then departments will have to take on debt and halt crucial projects. RHA students are especially involved in the review of the proposed housing, dining, and parking permit fees. We know how important transparency and communication are to ensuring fair costs and the success of our departments. We spend weeks diligently reviewing each fee and the projects the funds will be used towards. The reversion meant that instead of what they were approved for, these funds were taken for alternative projects. Resident life and residential facilities had to delay the renovations of 2 halls, having a significant impact on their operations and their strategic housing plan that exists to expand housing opportunities and quality for students. Dining and transportation also indicated uncertainty about the negative future impact of fund losses. As a representative of on-campus students, leaving this issue unresolved greatly concerns me. On March 3rd, 2020, the RHA Senate body voted unanimously on behalf of the resident student population to condemn the university for its reversion and require a discussion of potential future reversion plans in CRSF to protect the integrity of student fees and their intended use. HB 1295 achieves this goal. This is not a debate of which projects are most important, but rather a question of whether university stakeholders deserve to have a voice in the way fees that are approved for certain purposes are ultimately spent. If the University of Maryland is able to continue taking funds for alternative purposes with zero transparency, it will likely have dire consequences on the ability of departments to provide the services that are vital to both on and off-campus student success and well-being. I strongly urge a favorable report on HB 1295. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berry. At this time, we'll take questions from the committee for the bill sponsored witnesses. Gentlelady is recognized, Delegate Krim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to the bill sponsor. So as I understand it now from this testimony, there are fees being charged at the universities. They're not being used for what they're, what the students are being told they're supposed to be used for. So what happens to that money? Does it just go into a special project at the university, or what happens to that money?
Sure, and that really is the basis for this legislation. We do have a few individuals here that have been following this issue for several years now, and they see some particulars on where these dollars have gone and where they should have been going.
If I might answer that a little bit better. So the fees were intended to go towards things like housing, dining, the student union, and instead they were sent to capital projects such as the Cole Fieldhouse, economic development projects in College Park, and administrative research costs, stormwater management, all projects that are important, but not projects that were the money was allocated for when it was requested through the student fee process.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this happened in 2019 before the pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the Appropriations Committee for the bill sponsor or the witnesses? We also have favorable with amendment testimony from Joanne Bauman with the University System of Maryland. Joanne
Yes.
Bauman.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Joanne Bauman. I'm the Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the University System of Maryland. You have our written testimony in which we support this bill with amendments. The mission of the USM includes providing high quality, accessible, and affordable educational opportunities. A value central to the USM includes the process of shared governance. To that end, we include our constituencies providing input to the Board of Regents. In the assignment of student fees, there is a Regents policy that student consultation is required in the fee setting process, and each campus must attest to and document the process they used. Each year, the campuses send forward their planned fee structure for final approval by the Regents. At the same time, the Chancellor, the Board, and the state hold the presidents of the universities responsible for the management, including budget decisions, certainly with consultation of the stakeholders, but at the end of the day, the presidents are responsible for the financial results. We believe that the proposed amended language clarifies these points. Especially in these extraordinary times, our universities have had to deal with significant and rapid changes in the monies they are taking in, as well as managing the significant increases in costs associated with the pandemic. We therefore understand the need to become even more transparent with regard to fees collected from students. However, we also think that our current budgeting, auditing, and reporting processes are sufficient. So we respectfully request that an additional detailed quarterly report to student committees referred to in the bill be eliminated from the language. We have concurred with the changes in proposed language by a very similar Senate Bill 895, and you have the one additional amendment we would propose as detailed in our written testimony. We sincerely appreciate the hard work and engagement of all these student leaders in the discussion. They have articulated the experience clearly, and we understand and refer to our intent to, in fact, make the process even more transparent. Therefore, the USM supports the intent of 1295. We also agree that fee setting should be an inclusive process, as is also required by our policies. We therefore urge a favorable report on HB 1295 with amendments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bauman. The committee will now take questions from Ms. Bauman. The bill sponsors recognized. Delegate Solomon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Bachman, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here. I guess I just wanted to clarify a couple of points on your testimony, and I was reading through it again. I guess it seems to me, frankly, that the amendments got the purpose of the bill. I mean, I get the idea of having more students involved in sort of the fee setting process, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. It seems like the issue is not the fee setting, that's part of it, but the issue is that the fees were set and determined to be going towards a certain purpose, and then the university chose to spend it or the university system, individual campuses chose to set it in a different place. So to me, the auditing is sort of after the fact. It seems like what we're trying to get at with this bill is at some point in that process, and I don't think anybody's saying that we can't change, right? I mean, the state has a process with our own budget. The Board of Public Works is able to publicly and transparently shift money that the General Assembly has chosen to spend in Pot A to Pot B if circumstances dictate it. And it seems to me like that's what the students are asking for. They're not saying that maybe they should have a veto over it, but there certainly should be a collaborative process that if you as a customer, just like our taxpayers, expect the General Assembly to spend the money in the way that we said it's going to be spent, and if we change it and make it radically different, people get frustrated and they get upset with us. And it seems to me that your amendments got the bill to a certain extent. Is that accurate?
Well, that is not the intent. Please understand that we agree with the initial process that our policies dictate. And in fact, in our policies, and we agree with the fact that if there are major changes, that should go back through the student committee. And they should gain all of that information. It's the additional quarterly report that we were objecting to and asked to be removed from that, because we believe our usual reporting processes are enough. But for both steps in that, we would agree that the students' committees should be involved in understanding with full transparency.
So just to clarify, when you say major changes, do you mean major changes to the fee itself or major changes to how the fee is spent?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you to the Vice Chairman of the Education and Economic Development Subcommittee for the question. Are there any other questions for the bill sponsor or the witnesses? Generally is recognized. Delegate Cram.
Thank you. Ms. Baumann, from what it sounds to me as if the university looks at those fees like their little slush fund to move if they need to. And I know what we're looking for here is some transparency and discussing that with the students, but what's in place now? Is there anything in place now that would prevent a university president from moving that fee money to another project as he or she sees fit?
The process would include the assignment of fees in the beginning and the sharing of information about how those fees would be used. The reversion referred to by some of our students from College Park was a situation in 2019. I'm sure if we could do it all over again, it would be done differently. And believe me, our chancellor is now, and I think he's reached out to these students to in fact urge a more transparent process going forward. That reversion was a situation that we believe will not be repeated in the future.
Okay, can I just follow up? Will it be repeated with or without this bill?
It will not be repeated even without this bill.
Without the bill, okay. It's on the record.
The gentleman from Western Maryland is recognized. Delegate Beitzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this question is to Delegate Solomon or any of the members that testified here. I'm looking at the fiscal note, and if you look at the fiscal note, it seems that what you're asking for in this bill is already the practice, and the only thing this bill would do would be to codify what they're already doing. It says the Board of Regents has adopted policies on the establishment of tuition and mandatory fees, which already require student consultation. Board policy, I guess that is 8-2.50 policy on students' tuition. And it says specifies that for both mandatory and non-mandatory fees, each campus must ensure that an advisory committee is established and comprises appropriate number of students and stakeholders representing each area supported by a student fee. These advisory committees must be consulted prior to the establishment of a change of student fees, and the process by which the committee are involved must be reported to the Board of Regents along with proposed schedule. So how's your bill doing anything other than that, except perhaps it says on down through there that you're just going to codify the existing practice?
To the bill sponsor, Ms.
To the bill sponsor, yeah.
Thank you.
Bill sponsor.
And I hear your concerns, and I think that we can address those and really strengthen this piece of legislation. I look forward to working with you to achieve just that, whether it's through this specific amendment or others on the bill. But I look forward to working with you, sir.
Right.
Mr. Bateman with the University of Maryland Student Government Association.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond to Delegate Beitzel's question there. It does, the first part of the bill does codify existing policy, which is in response to issues that we've had from other schools where, like my colleague from Frostburg, it's not as clear. The second part of the bill is not in existing USM policy. That's the transparency section. And that's where we feel it needs to be dealt with through legislation because it shouldn't have happened through policy, and it did happen nonetheless. So part of it's new, and part of it's just codifying.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee for Delegate Ivey or the witnesses? Delegate Solomon Your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. No, that's up from before. Sorry about that.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee for Delegate Ivy or any of the witnesses here today? Also included in the bill file is testimony from Daniel Laffin, University of Maryland Graduate Student Association, and also Annie Rappaport, University System of Maryland Student Council, University of Maryland College Park. That ends the bill hearing for House Bill 1295, and that also ends the virtual bill hearing for today. There are committee announcements. Please monitor the vote list and amendments that will be emailed to our offices. Also, for any updates on subcommittee meetings for tomorrow, on behalf of House Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Maggie McIntosh, thank you very much for a wonderful virtual bill hearing. Have a great day.